Now let me tell y'all something. When two powerful folks sit across that table, you better believe it ain't just small talk. That ain't knows your day been conversation. That's power meeting power. One got the numbers, the other got the muscle, and in that kind of room, words are sharper than weapons. See, people think threats always come loud. Nah, a real threat don't even raise its voice. It just looks you dead in the eye and says, you know what's best. That's it. No yelling, no pointing fingers. Just calm pressure that makes your soul sit up straight. Now, when leaders talk, one from a country that's got all the eyes of the world, and the other from a land that's been rising, hustling, building, turning heads. That's more than politics. That's ego meeting ambition. It's pride meeting strategy. But here's the truth. A man who knows his worth don't scare easy. You can't threaten a person who's already been through fire, who's built his name brick by brick in front of the whole world. When you know who you are, when you stand on purpose instead of popularity, you don't flinch, you smile, you nod, and you keep building your legacy while they're still talking. That's the part people miss. See, it ain't about who said what, it's about how you respond when somebody tries to shake your foundation. You don't fight fire with fire. You fight it with vision, discipline, results. You let your success become the answer because real power don't shout. It moves quietly, consistently, confidently. So maybe somebody tried to flex. Maybe somebody tried to pull rank. But the man on the other side of that table, he ain't the type to back down. He the type to say, all right, let's see what happens next. That's how strong minds play the game. No threats, no fear, just focus. And if there's one thing the world needs to understand, leadership ain't about who can scare who. It's about who can stand tall when the lights get bright and the pressure gets heavy. That's the kind of power you can't threaten. That's the kind power doesn't always come wrapped in noise or fury. Sometimes it walks into the room wearing silence like a crown. The loudest person in the room is often the weakest one, trying too hard to prove a point. Real power, the kind that makes people pause, doesn't need to raise its voice. It looks you dead in the eye, smiles a little, and says something so calm, so measured that it shakes the ground beneath your feet. That's how authority works when it knows its value. It doesn't need fireworks. It doesn't need drama. It just exists, steady and unbothered. The real players in life don't shout about what they're going to do. They just do it. And by the time you notice, it's already done. That's how the game is played at the top level, quietly, strategically, and with absolute control over emotion. When two strong minds meet, both of them know the difference between noise and power. One might talk tough, but the other understands that energy speaks louder than volume. It's the way you sit, the way you listen, the way you pause before responding. Those little moments reveal who truly has control. When someone tries to test your strength with words, don't rush to react. Just breathe, stay composed, and let silence do the talking, because silence is where real confidence lies. The person who doesn't need to prove themselves has already won half the battle before the conversation even begins. In life, the same rule applies. You don't have to shout about your dreams, your plans, or your victories. Just work. Let your actions whisper the truth. People respect the calm ones because they know something the rest don't. They've seen storms and learned how to walk through them without losing balance. They've mastered the art of stillness in chaos. When you hold your peace in moments where everyone else is losing theirs, that's when you show true power. Because control isn't just about what you can dominate on the outside. It's about mastering what happens inside of you. The one who stays calm when everyone else gets loud always has the upper hand. They understand that strength isn't in the voice, it's in the presence. When ego meets ambition, the air gets thick and every word starts to carry more weight than it should. It's not just a conversation anymore, it's a test of identity. Ego walks in wanting to be seen, to dominate the space, to remind everyone who's boss. Ambition walks in with quiet hunger, with plans, with vision, with something bigger than pride. When these two forces collide, sparks fly without a single spark being visible. You can feel it in the pauses, in the glances, in the way one person leans forward and the other just sits back, studying every move. That moment isn't about who's right or wrong. It's about who's in control of themselves enough to steer the energy in their direction without forcing it. Ego always wants to win right now. It needs validation. It needs the room to recognize it instantly. Ambition doesn't rush. It knows that the real victory isn't in the reaction. It's in the results that show up later. So when two powerful personalities face each other, the one driven by ego comes in swinging, trying to assert dominance through words or gestures, while the one driven by ambition simply observes, adapts, and plans 3 steps ahead. The difference is subtle but massive. Ego is short-term power. Ambition is long-term strength. One burns fast, the other burns forever. In any power dynamic, there's always that moment when someone tries to test boundaries. They'll say something sharp, a little too direct, just to see if you'll flinch. That's the ego trying to provoke. But the ambitious mind doesn't bite. It listens, it smiles, it takes note. Because the ambitious one knows that patience is a weapon and silence is strategy. The more ego tries to control the room, the more it exposes its own insecurity. But ambition doesn't need to prove anything. It's too busy building, too focused on what's next. So when ego meets ambition, what you're really seeing is a battle between pride and purpose. One fights to be heard, the other works to be remembered. The one who understands the difference between reaction and response will always come out stronger. Because power that's rooted in ego fades the moment it's challenged, but power grounded in ambition grows stronger with every test. You can't intimidate a man who knows his worth and purpose, because his confidence isn't built on the opinions of others. It's built on the foundation of experience, struggle, and self-belief. A person like that has already faced storms and walked through fire. So another person's tone or threat doesn't move him. He's learned that validation doesn't come from titles, applause, or approval. It comes from knowing who he is and what he stands for. That kind of confidence can't be borrowed or faked. It's earned through time, through failures, and through moments of standing alone. When someone tries to shake him, he doesn't break. He just gets quieter, calmer, more focused, because he knows that nothing external can touch what's internal. There's something powerful about someone who's been through enough to realize that fear is just noise. When you know your purpose, when you know why you're here, you stop being impressed by threats and pressure. You don't respond to manipulation because you can see through it. A person with purpose sees every situation as part of the journey, not as an obstacle. They understand that everything serves a reason, even confrontation. So when someone tries to test them, they don't waste energy reacting. They simply observe because they understand that not every battle is worth fighting and not every loud voice deserves attention. This kind of strength shows up in subtle ways. It's in the calm tone during chaos, the steady eyes when others get nervous, the patience to let time reveal what emotion can't fix. When you know your worth, you don't need to prove it. You don't chase validation or try to convince anyone of your value. You let your character, your consistency, and your results do the talking. That's why intimidation doesn't work. You can't scare someone who's already faced worse and survived. You can't shake someone who's anchored in truth. People who know their worth move differently. They don't get caught in petty games or emotional traps. They understand that respect isn't demanded. It's earned through integrity. They stand tall not because they think they're better, but because they've learned that self-respect is the only real protection in this world. That's the kind of strength no threat can touch. True leaders don't respond to pressure with fear. They respond with vision. Pressure doesn't scare them. It sharpens them. When everything starts to shake, they don't panic or point fingers. They start seeing possibilities. They understand that the storm isn't there to break them. It's there to reveal what they're made of. A leader knows that fear makes people freeze, but vision makes people move. That's why when things get tense, the one with real leadership steps back, takes a breath, and starts looking at the bigger picture. They don't react to the moment. They think about the mission. They're not focused on how bad it looks right now. They're focused on where it can go if they stay steady, and strategic leadership is tested in pressure. Anybody can make good decisions when everything's going right. But when the walls start closing in and people start doubting, that's when real leaders rise. They don't allow emotions to dictate their direction. They know that fear is contagious, but so is calmness. So they choose calm. They know that panic makes people blind, but vision helps them see paths that others can't. They don't waste energy complaining about the pressure. They use it to fuel their focus. When everyone else sees a wall, they see a door that just needs a little more work to open. That mindset is what separates leadership from authority. Authority is about control. Leadership is about clarity. When a leader feels pressure, they don't fold, they grow. They understand that diamonds are made under pressure, not in comfort. They don't chase safety, they chase solutions. They don't look for someone to blame. They look for something to build. They realize that fear has a voice, and if you let it speak too long, it'll control your choices. But vision speaks quietly, like a whisper that says, there's more to see. That's the voice they follow. That's how leaders keep moving forward even when it feels impossible. The world always watches how a leader behaves under pressure. Do they crumble or do they create? Do they lose their temper or do they find their focus? The answer defines everything. True leaders don't try to escape pressure because they know it's part of the process. They use it as the fire that forges their strength and as the weight that builds their endurance. Real power moves quietly because it doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need an audience, and it doesn't need to prove anything. The loudest people in the room are often the weakest, trying to convince everyone of their importance. But those who truly hold power understand that noise is a distraction. They don't waste words trying to show what they can do. They let their results do the talking. When you move in silence, people don't see you coming. And by the time they realize what's happening, the work is already done. That's how real influence operates. Smooth, steady, and unstoppable quiet power is a kind of confidence that can't be faked. It's not about being passive. It's about being intentional. It's knowing when to speak and when to listen. It's understanding that timing is just as powerful as talent. The person who moves quietly is always observing, always learning, always calculating the next step while everyone else is busy talking. They don't reveal their plans because they don't need applause before the work is finished. They know that progress doesn't need permission. And when they finally make a move, it carries more weight because it wasn't expected. The world pays attention to what it didn't see coming in life. Quiet strength is the difference between reacting and responding. When something tries to shake you, real power doesn't panic or explain itself. It just adjusts, adapts, and advances. That calmness confuses people who thrive on chaos because they can't understand how someone can be so composed while everything's moving around them. But that's the beauty of quiet power. It's rooted in control, not emotion. It doesn't need to prove its dominance. It just stays focused on the goal. That's why the strongest people are often the calmest ones in the room. They're not worried about the noise because they know the noise can't stop progress. Results speak louder than any threat or declaration. You don't have to tell people you're powerful when your consistency shows it for you. That's the kind of power that builds legacies, not moments. It's the type that grows with patience and discipline. While others are showing off their potential, quiet power is building empires behind closed doors, step by step, without asking for attention or recognition. Leadership isn't about scaring people. It's about standing tall when pressure rises. Anyone can intimidate others with authority or fear, but that doesn't earn respect. True leadership is built on presence, not power. It's the calm voice in a storm, the one that keeps everyone grounded when things start falling apart. When challenges appear and the room starts filling with tension, the real leader doesn't raise their voice, they raise their vision. They don't push people with fear, they pull them with belief. People follow strength they can trust, not force they reason. And that strength comes from staying centered when everyone else is losing balance. Fear might get people to move, but it will never make them loyal. A leader who leads by fear builds walls, not bridges. But a leader who stands with courage and integrity builds trust that lasts. Standing tall doesn't mean pretending you're not affected by pressure. It means refusing to let it control you. It's the ability to stand in uncertainty and still project confidence, to look at chaos and still believe there's a way through it. When people see that kind of composure, they don't just listen to what you say, they start believing in what you see. That's the essence of real leadership, transferring calm to the people who look up to you. In moments of pressure, the real test isn't how much you can control others, but how well you can control yourself. Every word, every expression, every reaction becomes a signal to the people around you. Leaders understand that their energy sets the tone for the entire space. If they panic, everyone panics. If they stay steady, everyone finds strength in that steadiness. That's why leadership isn't a title, it's a responsibility. It's carrying weight without showing strain, guiding people without making them feel small, and standing firm without pushing anyone down when things go wrong. The easy way is to shift blame or use fear to regain control. But real leaders know that moments of pressure are opportunities to prove character. They don't threaten, they inspire. They don't shout, they show up. They understand that their strength isn't measured by how many people they can control, but by how many they can uplift when the world feels heavy. That's what makes leadership unshakable.